I never thought a single evening could stir up so many memories, so many buried feelings. The soft hum of the city outside my apartment window was almost calming, yet I felt a tension coiling in my chest. My silk blouse brushed against my skin, smooth and cool, a stark contrast to the storm I could feel simmering inside me. I glanced at my phone. The screen lit up with a notification, but I hesitated before opening it. It was a group chat message from my cousin, something about mom planning a family get-together. My stomach sank instantly. That woman, she had a way of twisting words, making everyone watch as if I were some kind of spectacle. My mind replayed moments I had tried so hard to forget. The humiliation, the laughter at my expense, the sting of her voice when she made it clear that I was less than in her eyes. Yet here I was, years later, in a space of quiet success, keeping my real achievements tucked away. I had built a life she couldn't imagine, let alone control. But as I stared out at the city lights, I felt that old mix of pride and irony. Pride for what I had accomplished alone, irony that she still thought she held any power over me. I took a deep breath, smelling the faint scent of coffee lingering in the kitchen, and whispered to myself, almost like a promise, "Tonight, everything changes." I can still remember that night like it was yesterday. I was 17, standing in the middle of our cramped living room, my hands trembling, my voice barely holding steady. Mom had just thrown another one of her cutting remarks at me, right in front of everyone. "You'll never amount to anything," she had said, the words slicing through me as if she'd aimed with precision. Everyone was watching, and I could feel their eyes on me, judging, whispering, and secretly agreeing. I tried to explain myself, tried to tell her I was serious about my dreams, about wanting to carve out a life on my own terms, but she only scoffed. The sting of rejection was almost physical. My younger sister looked away, embarrassed, and I wanted to shrink into the floor. I felt small, trapped, humiliated, but something inside me refused to break. That evening, Grandma came to my room, her silver hair catching the dim light, and she handed me a small, worn leather notebook. "Write everything," she said softly, "your plans, your fears, your victories before anyone else can take them away from you." Her eyes, full of warmth and quiet strength, met mine. It was her belief in me that ignited a spark I didn't know was still alive. I spent that night writing, pouring every shred of anger, hurt, and hope onto the pages. Each word was a promise to myself that one day I would prove not to her, but to myself, that I was capable of greatness. That night, I made a decision I would never regret. I would not let her words define me. I would find my own path, far away from judgment and ridicule, armed only with determination and the lessons of those who truly believed in me. By morning, I knew the first step I had to take. I would leave, quietly, methodically, and build a life that was mine alone. And in that resolve, I felt something I had never felt before: freedom. Leaving wasn't easy. The first months were the hardest. I rented a tiny studio apartment in a city that didn't know my name, surrounded by strangers who had no reason to believe in me. The notebook Grandma had given me became my constant companion, filled with plans, goals, and reminders that my worth was not tied to anyone's opinion, especially Mom's. I found work at a small startup, the kind of place where I wore multiple hats, learned everything on the fly, and survived on instant coffee and determination. My mentor, a seasoned woman named Claire, noticed my drive before anyone else did. She had this way of seeing potential where others only saw inexperience. "You have a fire in you," she said one evening, handing me a stack of files. "Don't let anyone dim it." Her words stayed with me through long nights when doubt gnawed at my confidence and my body screamed for rest. The struggles were relentless. I made mistakes, big ones that cost me clients, opportunities, and sometimes my pride, but I learned. I learned to negotiate, to pitch ideas with precision, to trust my instincts. Each small win felt monumental. Landing my first big client, seeing my savings account grow for the first time, realizing I could stand on my own without anyone else's approval. I built a hidden life of success, one carefully veiled from my family. Social media updates were modest, just enough to keep appearances, but the truth of my accomplishments remained my secret armor. I bought my first apartment in a neighborhood I had dreamed of since childhood, furnished it with care, choosing pieces that reflected not just taste, but the journey I had taken to reach this point. Through it all, I kept the notebook close, now filled with strategies, victories, and reflections on every challenge. It wasn't just a journal, it was a roadmap to freedom, a testament to resilience, and a quiet promise that one day, everyone who doubted me would see what I had built. And slowly, the woman who once cowered under Mom's words became someone she couldn't imagine, a woman confident in her intelligence, her vision, and her worth. I had learned not just to survive, but to thrive, and the thought that my success could eventually be revealed to those who once scorned me filled me with a sense of quiet, controlled anticipation. For now, I remained in the shadows, letting my work speak for me. But soon, the time would come when the world, and Mom, would see the full measure of what I had accomplished. And when they did, it wouldn't be an accident or a miracle. It would be the inevitable result of every ounce of courage, sweat, and persistence I had poured into becoming the woman I was always meant to be. The day arrived with a strange mix of anticipation and calm. Mom had invited herself and the family over, expecting to see the same timid, struggling girl she had always dismissed. I welcomed them into my apartment, every detail carefully arranged, not ostentatious, but unmistakably a reflection of my journey and accomplishments. Expensive art lined the walls, curated pieces that spoke to my tastes and travels. My office nook gleamed with polished wood, my awards neatly displayed, each one a silent testimony to the years of relentless work they had never witnessed. Mom walked in first, her eyes scanning the space with that familiar, critical gaze, though I could sense a flicker of confusion at the elegance surrounding her. My sisters whispered among themselves, their faces a mixture of curiosity and disbelief. My father looked proud but uncertain, as if trying to reconcile the person before him with the daughter he thought he knew. I let them take it all in. I didn't speak immediately. I let the silence stretch, the tension growing, the unspoken question hanging in the air. Who is she now? Every glance, every gasp, every subtle shift in posture was evidence of their shock, and I savored it quietly. Then, I finally spoke, my voice calm but resonant. Welcome to my life. I smiled softly, gesturing around the room. I didn't just survive after leaving home. I built something real, something I can be proud of. Mom's mouth opened slightly, but no words came. My sister's eyes widened, and I saw the slow dawning of recognition, the realization that this woman, standing before them with quiet confidence and undeniable authority, was the same girl they had once mocked. I'm the CEO of my own company now, I continued, and this, I gestured to my office, is not a temporary setup. It's the result of years of work, sleepless nights, and unwavering commitment to my dreams. My net worth? Enough to live the life I always imagined, and to help those who deserve it, including family, but on my terms. Their reactions were instantaneous and revealing. Mom's face turned pale, her earlier smugness replaced by disbelief and shame. My sisters whispered apologies they hadn't thought to say before. Dad's eyes shimmered with awe, maybe even a little guilt for underestimating me. The air was thick with unspoken questions, regrets, and astonishment. I let them linger in the moment, letting the truth sink in fully. Every glance, every shift, every quiet intake of breath was part of the revelation. The power dynamic had shifted, subtly but irreversibly. They had come expecting weakness, but they found strength, my strength, and nothing could erase the journey that had brought me here. And then I smiled again, with that calm, knowing certainty. You see, the girl you tried to humiliate? She's still here, but she's nothing like you imagined. She's unstoppable. The room was silent after my revelation. Their eyes moved between me and the space I had created, a life built on resilience, intelligence, and unwavering determination. For the first time, I felt the power clearly, undeniably in my hands. I could choose how this story continued, and I would set the terms. "I want to help," I said finally, my voice steady but warm. "But things have to change. No more old patterns, no more toxic behavior that holds us back. I'm done being the scapegoat, the target, the one everyone underestimates. If we are going to move forward, it will be on my terms." Mom shifted uneasily, but I held her gaze. "You need to respect boundaries. Words can't wound anymore. And I want to see genuine effort, no pretending. That includes honesty, accountability, and letting go of the need to control me or anyone else." I turned to my sisters, who looked like they were holding their breath. "You both have potential," I said, softening slightly, "but hiding behind excuses and following outdated fears won't get you anywhere. You must chase your own ambitions, not live in my shadow or anyone else's. And remember, true growth takes courage. You'll have to show it, not just say it." Dad, who had been quietly observing, nodded. "And you too, Dad?" he asked. "Yes," I replied. "Even you. I expect respect for the choices I've made, support where it's due, and recognition that I will no longer be undervalued. We can heal, but it requires sincerity. I care, but I'm not bending back into old roles where I am diminished." I could see their faces reflecting a mix of humility, guilt, and tentative hope. It wasn't about punishment, it was about accountability and growth. My rules weren't rigid or cruel. They were designed to foster transformation, to break the cycles that had once suffocated me, and to give them a chance to rise alongside me, not beneath me. "I'll help you," I added, "because family matters, but only if you prove you are ready to change. I won't accept laziness, dishonesty, or continued disrespect. The choice is yours, but remember this. The girl you thought you could humiliate has become a woman who demands integrity, strength, and vision, not only for herself, but for those she chooses to surround herself with." By now, the atmosphere had shifted entirely. The power had subtly but irrevocably moved from me being the marginalized daughter to being the one setting the terms, defining the future. The quiet realization of this fact was written across their faces. They finally understood the weight of my words and the measure of my success. And in that moment, I realized that the freedom I had fought for wasn't just about money or recognition. It was about control over my life, my relationships, and my peace of mind. I had won, not by defeating them, but by transforming myself, and that was the kind of power no one could ever take away. Weeks passed after that evening, and change began to take root. Mom, slowly and hesitantly, started addressing me with respect, her sharp words replaced by measured conversations. She was learning that love didn't need to hurt, that pride didn't need to belittle. My sisters began pursuing their own ambitions, college applications, side projects, creative pursuits, and I watched with a quiet satisfaction as they grew into their own potential. Dad supported them, and me, with a newfound balance that reminded me of the father I had always hoped for. I often returned to the leather notebook Grandma had given me years ago. Its pages were worn and smudged, filled with the ink of countless nights of planning, reflection, and dreaming. Flipping through it, I realized how far I had come. That small gift, simple and unassuming, had been the seed of my independence. It had guided me through self-doubt, fueled my determination, and reminded me that my worth was mine to define, not theirs. Sitting by the window one evening, the city lights sparkling below, I reflected on the journey, the humiliation, the loneliness, the relentless grind, and the quiet victories that no one else had seen. It had all led to this, a space where I was not just surviving, but thriving, where my relationships were healthier, my voice was respected, and my life reflected the woman I had chosen to become. And in that reflection, I found peace. Not the fragile, fleeting peace of avoidance, but the deep, enduring peace of knowing I had reclaimed my narrative. I had turned every insult, every doubt, every sneer into fuel that propelled me forward, rather than chains that held me back. I smiled, tracing the edges of the notebook one last time. "I did it," I whispered softly, my voice steady and clear. carrying the weight of everything I had endured. I became unstoppable on my own terms. And in that moment, I felt the ultimate sense of liberation, strength, independence, and grace intertwined in a quiet, undeniable truth. This was my story, my triumph, and my life. And if anyone doubted it before, they wouldn't forget it. Bottom of form.